Stranded on a deserted tropical island, how would you survive? Well, I'm going to help you out today in survival, Fountain of Youth, with 20 beginner tips that I think will help you make life just a bit easier in building up a base, getting a good raft, and making sure you're exploring some of the key locations and resources that you're going to need to survive. There's so much to this game, I've got lots more incoming, but here it is. Top 20 tips I kind of wish I knew a bit earlier, or certainly will help you if you just started the game. My name's JADE PG, let's go. Fountain of Youth has a whole bunch of new settings that you can apply, but if you're playing on just the classic default mode, you can only take 2 items with you when you leave the first ship. Definitely learned my lesson from the early access when I chose metal tools, because they will not be able to be repaired for a long time. Instead, make sure you take the coat, and I would say the backpack or the flint. The coat really will give you some extra protection against the weather elements, as well as the backpack giving you enough slot space to carry more resources, and although you can craft your own backpack pretty soon, it's still much better. It also lasts a long time before you have to repair it as well. There's a brand new tutorial island. I highly recommend that you spend a good couple days here, making sure you pick up as many sticks as possible, craft absolutely everything that you can see pop up, and get a good abundance of coconuts and crabs so that you've got food to last for a couple of days. Especially try and make a coconut flask, as this will help you make a water container which you can use as soon as you make landfall, and that will start helping you get water instead of having to go across the map to pick some up just in case it doesn't rain. Don't bother building a base though on a starter island or anything like that, just make sure you can carry everything with you, get on the raft, and then as soon as you make landfall, buy the bones right directly across, then put a box down and start that as your mini base. There's 2 things you can do here to set up a base if you don't want to waste too much time just building a really barren box. You can actually live inside the first cave that you come across, although you will have to put up with scorpions occasionally attacking you after waking up. But this cave will keep you away from the elements and mean that you can create fires as much as you want to cook food, even when it's raining, and overall a safe bet to set up your first mini base. If you do get stunned by the scorpions, it's fairly easy to make the poultice using the scorpions themselves to go ahead and cure the sting. Second option is to actually upgrade your raft and make sure you don't beach it like I did. Always leave it just in the water, otherwise it's incredibly hard to get off. By upgrading it or improving it, you get yourself a brand new bed and another storage box directly on the raft, making it a mobile base pretty early on. You will need to go through some steps like building the shipbuilder's repair kit. So if you want to live outside, I still recommend this method and making sure you've got a campfire nearby until eventually you pick a nice location for your base, although you may want to consider having your main base on a different island altogether. Getting your ship to be your mobile base early on is even more relevant if you've chosen a game setting that has you spawning at different points on the map. This game is vast and huge. There's so many brand new locations added with 1.0, but even before then there was a good amount of different islands to explore. So this island that you're on isn't maybe going to be your forever home, although it is a good location to come back to over and over again. So think carefully before you start building a giant massive twig or bamboo mansion. You may just want to discover and take a look at some of the other islands, although that will take a while. You either have got to have the upgraded ship, part of the natives map, or a note from one of the Spanish survivors. You can go and explore some of the smaller islands and certain points of interest around the map, but pretty much it's like a fast travel system eventually to go and explore the more advanced areas. That's something I didn't realise for a while, and I was puzzled about why I couldn't really keep going and just explore something pretty big and new. On the eastern side of the island, and it's pretty much signposted by the very first story beats you pick up within that cave, you will find a small dock being formed and built. It's on a little inlet and surrounded by some of the eagle nests nearby, so you have to be careful with that if you're going over land, and it's a bit of a stretch going along the coast. What it does have though is the beginnings of a base, so you can choose to go ahead and set one up here, or go ahead and dismantle it and then use the building kits to go ahead and make a dock. And that's something I totally forgot in my little playthrough so far, as building a dock pretty much acts like a fast travel point. So whether you go to the effort eventually of exploring and finding this place, or any other areas that have some base build spots already, don't forget to go ahead and either dismantle them and make sure you build that dock as soon as possible. Make sure you've got a good supply of the various different poultices, ones that either cure having a cold, giving yourself a fever, or obviously poison. The beach is relatively safe, but as soon as you start setting foot in land, start stepping on rattlesnakes or getting stung by some of the bramble, you'll quickly realise you'll have a bunch of cuts, bruises and afflictions. So always try and make sure you've got at least 3 of each type. Whenever you unlock a new one because you've picked up a new berry, go ahead and craft the poultice for it straight away. This basically gives you a rough idea of what to expect in terms of what can affect your health, your stamina and your basic statuses. It sounds pretty obvious, but you'd be surprised how it ramps up the difficulty. I went from needing just 1 or 2 of these to suddenly needing 3 or 4 of them by the time I started exploring inland. There are just so many different things that are surprisingly going to damage you, like the rattlesnakes that you can't hear sometimes till you step on them. Always have them supplies and regular bandages. Generally speaking, the further north you go, the more dangerous the island gets, with things like jackals appearing, more of the actual eagles, and just basically more enemies. So there's nothing wrong in making sure you stick to the south or just slight east or west coast. If you do a good patrol along the coast, you'll easily pick up lots of sticks, lots of coconuts, and lots of points of interest that will give you skill points. I do recommend taking a small hike to the southeastern part of the coast, until you find this spot with the stone dock and that big massive tablet mural. It's also where you'll find one of the island map pieces that you'll also need to go ahead and fast travel to the other island biomes. And while you're here, don't skip out on a snake potion in the water, which I actually got by accident after falling in. There's various different ways to get the skill points, either by crafting what's on the list when you look inside the menu, and obviously you'll find lots of resources eventually to achieve a lot of that, and by finding certain points of interest. You then obviously use these skill points to give yourself some new abilities or buffs. I personally put my first 3 points into gaining more XP. The cost of these does increase each time you level up, and then I go ahead and level up concentration, as this will highlight items that you've dropped around you and points of interest. Stuff to do with giving you more resistance to either poisons or colds and stuff, a lot that you won't really need as much, not until you start exploring much deeper, and hopefully by then you've got a lot of the poultices that'll help cure it all. You're meant to find the spyglass, and that will give you the ability then to see certain viewpoints and progress more of the story, basically leading you to a very high mountain with a big massive hieroglyph on it. It's pretty close by, you can't really miss it, but it's a perfect opportunity to go ahead and use that mapping even more. Don't forget, you don't need to just be on trees, you can use it even when you're on high mountains or just anywhere really, and it will reveal small portions of the map. The higher the better, obviously, it will reveal more locations around you, but always make sure you've got at least 3 or 4 pieces of charcoal on you. Once you've found this spyglass at the location marked out on the map in the cave, you should be able to then go ahead and take a look at this at the right time standing on this platform. But do make sure you come here nearer that time, otherwise you're going to have to spend a night maybe on the mountain. If that's the case, make sure you bring a portable bed with you, as there's not much to sleep on or resources to craft a bed. There's huge benefits to making sure you've got the best upgraded weapons and armour that you can get, things like having stone spears rather than wooden ones. They'll do more damage, they'll last longer and won't need repairing or just crafting new ones. But there are also benefits obviously in crafting stuff, as that increases your crafting XP, which will help you in the long run. With that in mind, make sure when you go and explore and you find resources like coconut trees, you do try and harvest everything within that tree at that one time. Same thing goes for some of the flat rounded plants or anything else that you come across. Try and gather it all and take it all, and try and take everything in that area. This will stop you having to go back and forth checking to see if this tree has basically gone through its timer and has more branches for you to collect, fruits or whatever. Seriously, the amount of times I've gone over to the same tree to check to see if the coconuts are going to respawn, it has just been a waste of time. So do really compartmentalise, go through certain areas, clear out everything within that area along the beach, and then just come back to it 3 or 4 days later. You can choose to chop down trees and plants, and you will gain some of the resources from it, but obviously do remember they won't respawn then. So you've got to weigh up. If you're not really going to be spending much time in this particular part of the island, then go ahead. Demolish whatever you're looking at and you'll get them resources to use there and then, knowing you're going to move on. But if you're having a bit more of a chill, relaxing time and just settling and building a base, then go ahead and make sure you don't chop anything down. Something I found frustrating was my cutting stones always breaking, so the ability to get a knife, a proper one early, is important. And so your best chance of that is picking up bones to make the bone knife until eventually you find obsidian. You'll need to kill 3 of the fast moving peccaries to hopefully get the bones needed, but it's definitely worth it as the knife will help a lot in terms of skinning and just being more durable than cutting stone. However, all the way to the east of the map you will find a graveyard which has got a ton of bones in it, but you do need to make sure you bring a shovel. And that's I guess the tip here, make sure that you get a knife as soon as you can and make sure you've always got a shovel on you, just in case you are going to be doing some digging. Mapping the island is really important. I've already mentioned how you should do it when you're on top of the mountain, but really go out your way to go ahead to the trees whenever you find one to map that area. It just helps so much locate the resources that you might need for a recipe but have no clue or idea of where to find it. So always, as soon as you spot one of the special trees, run over to it and make sure you get up there. It's obviously a great spot to also pick up eggs, although quite heavy. It does mean that you can go ahead and make plenty of fried eggs as a decent meal. They generally last a lot longer, I do believe, than just regular meat cooked as well. Learn to throw or use the bow and arrow. It can take a while, especially with the bow and arrow, and once you start getting your concentration skills up, it definitely becomes a bit easier. Mainly because you'll be able to see your spears or your arrows if in case you miss. A lot of creatures will go down like the little doggos with just one spear throw or an arrow, but some things like the peccaries will need multiple hits, so bear that in mind, make sure you've got enough stamina to chase after it afterwards. Melee is obviously important as well, but I do think that if you get good and practice your skills at throwing and archery, it's definitely going to be better overall in the long run to take on more of the dangerous creatures you'll come across. A few quick easy wins to get them skill points: crafting a date holder so you can get the date juice from the tree, as well as building 4 walls on a base. These things are really important, so keep checking that list to see what you can achieve quick and easy. The water collector is also one of them, as well as the flint once you find 2 pieces of flint to make the flint starter. So you can go ahead and harvest the date tree to get the dates to eat, but do remember to come back here and put the special coconut holder on it to get the juice. It does take a few days to fill up, but it is really good for giving you food and water. Close by to that date tree, and originally where you spawned in the first version of the game during early access, you will find a beach with this kind of sundial on it. There's also lots of boxes filled with food like apples and bread. So if you've been running low on food or just sick of eating crabs, it's well worth checking some of the boxes. And always try and go to any points of interest that pop up on the map once you've surveyed, as they'll often lead to some extra loot that might be a bit harder to craft or you just don't have a lot of resources of. Returning to that mountain with the big hieroglyphic on it, make sure you do go through the cave and you pick up another piece of the basically map from the natives, as this will unlock the next or one of the next region areas to go to. And make sure you explore the other way up to the mountain. Basically, if you've come up from the western side, just keep going through the cave and then through the other end of the mountain, you'll come across this pond area with lots of bamboo, lots of rattlesnakes, so it is a bit dangerous, but also lots of cattails. And this will lead down to eventually another way closer to the beach on the southeastern side of the map. This is why I said you need to come up here empty-handed, because the bamboo is pretty heavy. Now if you've already built a water collector, then hopefully water won't be such an issue, and of course you can always eat coconuts to get that water. But bamboo flasks are super handy, shout out to Chicky for this tip, and absolutely craft a bunch of them when you're up here. You can then fill them with the water that's going to be safe and drinkable, and even when that runs out, you can then still use them flasks to go ahead and collect the date juice later. The map is absolutely massive, and you can absolutely use your ship to go around the coast, but just bear in mind it's always going to take a bit longer sometimes than even just running across. The only exception to that of course is if you've got a ton of resources from one part of the map and you want to bring it back to your base. This is why it's good to have your raft and use that to sail around the coast. And you may think because you're well prepared and got lots of resources needed in case you get attacked or get sick, that it's okay to go travelling at night. But you will have more issues with critters and creepy crawlies attacking you. These can feel like almost random effects sometimes, but it does happen, especially if your armour starts getting degraded. So make sure you don't have them red symbols like I have, and make sure you repair it or craft new ones. And the last tip, again, is kind of more of a location based one, or something you should check out as soon as you can. It is to go to the spot near the inlet that shows on the map from the very first cave you find on the coast. It'll take you to this high rise ruins with another mural that you have to go and find the pieces to replace and fix the mural. It's also very close to that bone graveyard too. Doing this at night wasn't my best bet, so also make sure you got your torch always lit, and you can go ahead and put it away and it will still give you light. This also keeps away some of the critters. But do try and make sure you've got your concentration skill upgraded at least once so that you can see some of the other pieces you need much easier. I found it really troubling doing this eventually the first time because I didn't have that concentration skill unlocked and I just couldn't find all the pieces for ages. And that's just the top tip. Everything's about timing. Try and only go out during the daytime unless you really need to go out at night for something because you're halfway across the map. Make sure you've got plenty of healing items on you and always go lightly as you're always going to pick up a ton of resources on your travels. So don't carry 5 spears, 3 axes and 4 stones. Try and get things upgraded like the bow knife and stuff. If you do get attacked, poisoned or anything like that, try and cure it as soon as possible. You don't really want it to build up and go and develop into something worse. And don't forget the water of life replenishes your health. You can see the little red bar box there. That's obviously reduced, so I can't get full health. You'll find the water of life at various locations, a good few, 2 or 3 of them on this island and more throughout the game. And basically it just replenishes and gives you your full health back. So it's definitely something to utilise, and it can also give you more water if you're really desperate. And there you go. That's pretty much everything I wish I knew and a good 20 or so top tips to get you started. There's so much more to the game, how to get metals and advance to the other islands properly. That's definitely all coming. I'm going to be doing proper detailed walkthroughs as I'm really enjoying this game. Let me know what you think about Survival Fountain in Youth. What top tips have you got for beginners? And I'll see you ratbags for more. Also check out my 7 days of my first survival let's play style video, which I actually put out on my second channel, JADE-PG Crafted, and go and check that out to see my adventures. Until next time, ratbags, laters.